that she's willing to do those things and want to do those things, that means that it's very less likely that you're going to get into the situation where she's initiating the divorce and you feel like she's bored.
And the second you stand up for yourself and have a boundary, the easier it is to continue to do that when you need to do that.
Yeah.
So that, I feel like, is a key as well.
Whatever it is, like the free parking rule, right? If you land on free parking, then you get the money from the, I don't remember how that, you know what I mean? The free parking rule where if you land on free
No,
parking.
I don't, but sure.
There's some rule where if you land on free parking, you get all the money from when people pay to go get out of jail or something, or whatever it is.
Okay.
I don't know. But that they don't create boundaries. They don't put their foot down on certain behaviors, like being yelled at or cussed at or disrespected early on.
Right.
And they get into a committed relationship with these women that are already doing that because they're afraid. And then they end up getting this result. Because that's the other thing we were talking about this last night or the other night, was that if a man is dating a woman, let's say casually, and she wants to get in a committed relationship, and before he does that, he makes sure she's not disrespecting him. She's not yelling at him, not calling him names at those things. You can have arguments, but it's not getting to that level. She's not being disrespectful in that. He's set proper boundaries, like we talked about in our episode 2, I think it was, of the relationship of, locations on. We share texts and emails, and, we don't do girls night out, guys night out kind of partying stuff like that. And he's also had the conversation with her about the captain of the ship, which we talked about, where it's like, I'm a good captain, I'm going to be captain of the ship. Like, she agrees that he's going to lead the relationship. If all those things are checked off and then you enter a relationship with a woman, this statistic, you got a parachute, right? Now you've just given yourself a parachute. Because, is it still possible that she could initiate the divorce or leave you? Yeah, if but if you've vetted that amount, which also means, it doesn't also mean that she's necessarily the best woman in the world. It means that she sees you as a trustworthy and respectable enough of a man. She has a high enough opinion of you that she's willing to do those things and want to do those things. That means that it's very less likely that you're going to get into the situation where she's initiating the divorce and you feel like she's bored.
Well, it's also good for men to do that, because then they know that they've stood up for themselves and had boundaries, and they're less likely to be afraid to have hard conversations because they've already had one from the very beginning. And I think that is what is important for any sort of people pleaser, because that's essentially what these men are. They think they're peacemakers, but they're people pleasers. Right. And the second you stand up for yourself and have a boundary, the easier it is to continue to do that when you need to do that. Yeah. So that, I feel like, is a key as well, besides just having the boundaries in general, but to do the act of asserting a boundary and having that conversation. Yeah. So in the future, you can have more serious conversations without trying to just people please.
Yeah. And 90% of the time, when you haven't had that boundary as a man in a relationship, and you try to assert that boundary in the relationship, she's going to break up with you or you're going to break up with her. Because you're changing the rules to the agreement, which you should, but you have to understand things have been operating a certain way. This has been the rules of the game that you've been playing, and now you're changing the rule of it. You should change the rule of it because that's how the rules should have been, but it's much easier to set the rules up front than to change them while everyone's already playing the game.
Right.
If you imagine playing a board game and if you play Monopoly and you agree that, if whatever it is, like the free parking rule, right? If you land on free parking, then you get the money from I don't remember how that, you know what I mean? The free parking rule where if you land on free parking.
No, I don't, but sure.
There's some rule where if you land on free parking, you get all the money from when people pay to go get out of jail or something, or whatever it is. Okay. I don't know. But if everyone's playing like that, and then all of a sudden you're like, nah, actually, let's not do that rule anymore. Right. People are going to be upset. Yeah. It's not going to go over well. But if you started it from the beginning, that's what you agreed to. Yeah. So that's why a lot of times, this can occur.
But without getting into that topic, because that's a totally separate one, is there anything else you want to add to men being afraid of women?
I think that's the main thing in the context of why women initiate most breakups and divorces is because men are afraid to upset.
Better